Well, on today's edition of Weather to Watch, is it normal for two tropical systems to form a pair of creepy eyes on the forecast charts? Let's dive right into it. Hello, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. We'll start out today by looking at the visible satellite loop as the sun sets on the eastern Atlantic. We can see Hurricane Gabrielle, which was a major hurricane at one point, but it did not affect significantly any land mass at all. It didn't really even come all that close to Bermuda. And then, of course, what we're watching are those two areas that you see on the map right here and right here, two potential tropical systems that are forming kind of close to each other. And to answer the question that I posed, no, that's not really all that abnormal at all. Sometimes, if one forms behind another major storm like Gabrielle, its development is somewhat stunted by the cooling of the ocean surface temperatures right behind that major storm. But that doesn't appear to be the case with at least one of these. This one here, this one might be affected by that. We'll have to wait and see what the development is on that. But no, hurricanes do all kinds of strange things. They do loop-to-loops. They go back over the Atlantic, come back into the Gulf. They do the opposite of that. If you look back over hurricane history, it's pretty crazy. Anyway, here is the tropical forecast for the Atlantic showing these are labeled by the Hurricane Center basically by numbers and longitude. So there you go, 93 and 94 with a very high 70% chance or higher chance of development. This one is pretty much over Puerto Rico. Show you a radar there in a minute. And this one's more out over the open water. And again, pretty high probabilities we're going to get a named storm out of these. On the model guidance, we're just looking at the global model that the U.S. runs, the GFS. And this is the one that's, again, over Puerto Rico. This one is a little more erratic with its path, and you'll notice there's quite a bit of divergence from the model runs. So when we do an ensemble run, which is what the E stands for in this abbreviation, it just means we're taking the initial conditions, tweaking them a little bit scientifically, and seeing what the output is. If everything is in agreement, confidence is high, that's what it's going to do. If you see something like this, where it looks like someone didn't comb their hair, then there's room here for the East Coast to be watching for whatever develops. And I'll show you the names in a minute, but it's going to be a race to see who gets what, which one develops the circulation first to get the next name on the list. Anyway, if you look at 93L, this one is much more compact. This one's also going to pass over the waters that were churned up by Gabrielle, so we'll see what happens with that one. Let's take a look at our radar loop now. We normally don't get access to a lot of radars down there in the Caribbean, but it just so happens that Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States, so there is a National Weather Service radar there in San Juan, so we can see the circulation. It's a broad circulation right now, but you can clearly see there's something going on down there, showers and thunderstorms responding to the changing wind field, but nothing so far that is worthy of a name. On the Atlantic hurricane name list, of course, we just showed you Gabrielle. That one's done. And the next two names on the list are Humberto, and it looks like Imelda are the next two names. And both of these storms and the last couple of storms are all falling within what you expect to see in the Atlantic in September. This red zone right here. But every once in a while, like on that one we're watching over Puerto Rico, there is at least some chance that parts of the southeastern United States could get in on that. On Tuesdays, they issue this forecast, so they're still looking for the October 1st through October 7th period to have something possibly going on. Pretty low probability, 20% chance, when compared to the really high probabilities we typically see south of Mexico this time of year. And then beyond that, they're not seeing much at all. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, I mentioned on many of these videos, we are certainly, even though we passed the peak of tropical storm and hurricane season back on September 10th, it does not mean that we will not have a surge like we're seeing now. And, more activity to come even into early October. All these long-range forecasts don't indicate that now. Let's switch gears and go to the United States here. Here's the visible satellite loop. You can see the major storm system is certainly this right here, stretching from Texas into New England. And you also have a low circulating off the Los Angeles coastal area there. Here's the upper level wind field. So we have this trough of low pressure when the red lines dip southward like this. That's what that is. The center of that circulation is up there in the lower peninsula of Michigan. We have a nice fetch of moisture coming along this way. So some pretty good rains, I think, but not nearly as intense as they were forecast to be and were over Kansas and parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri over the last couple of days. And there you can see that upper level low parked due west of Los Angeles, creeping very slowly to the north. Let's look at the surface map. We have this kind of strung out front. Very typical when you have jet stream winds which are blowing like this, which is what that last chart showed you. Then you're going to get sluggish front movements. So in other words, the front is parallel to the upper level winds. So there's very little to push it with any great hurry. There's the entire system itself, which was that upper level trough, has to move instead of winds really driving it across the southeast. So you'll see what that effect that has on rain totals there in just a few more frames. But that's a look at the surface map. Another Pacific front coming ashore in Washington and in Oregon. Here's kind of a fun product. I just put current weather, and these are represented by just not symbols. I wish I had symbols. I don't, but I'm just using their letter abbreviations. So RA is moderate rain. If it's a plus in front of the R rain, it's heavy rain. DZ is drizzle. So you can see much of the activity back through here is just drizzle and very light rain for the most part. I overlaid lightning on top of this so you can see where the thunderstorms are, and those are showing up mostly in Louisiana right now. Having said that, though, the severe weather threat for today and for the next several days is very, very low in most areas. The autumnal equinox started on Monday. Here is a NOAA satellite image of every single day since the last equinox. So a new portion of this particular video I work on, Weather to Watch, that I might interject from time to time, are some of my weather lectures from Missouri State University. And since we just had the season change here, I figured it might be nice if you saw a little, it's a 5-minute little video on why we have seasons. And I hope you find it interesting to watch. I have a link at the end of the video, by the way, and in the description to watch that. Well, over the next 5 days, the heaviest rains will be reserved for portions of the Carolinas, mostly North Carolina, parts of the South, and also Virginia. Maybe a little bit of moisture creeping into parts of New Mexico and Arizona, and perhaps a little bit in the Northwest, but not a whole lot. There's also some pretty good rain totals. Again, this is over the next 5 days forecast for areas of New England. And by the way, so Invest 93L is what this is right here, that potential tropical storm. If we look at the next 6 to 10 days, this goes to Tuesday of next week and through Saturday. So the southeast is generally primed to get a little more rain. So is Northern California, parts of Oregon. The shading is confidence level. It'll be above or below normal. So pretty high confidence in wet weather through that time period in that California area. Fairly confident in the southeast. Pretty confident that much of New England will be dry through that period as well. Let's just look at the general pattern. So this is the EPS weekly. So this is the average 500 millibar flows. So there's basically a trough of low pressure in the east and a ridge of high pressure in the northern plains and in the northwest. So basically these correlate fairly approximately to temperature patterns. So you're going to expect to see warmth where ridging is occurring and a little bit cooling back behind the troughs, or maybe sometimes out ahead of them too if there's enough rain. So let's see what it says about that. So it's actually showing below normal temperatures through that weekly period starting Monday, this past Monday, and below normal temperatures in the plains and above normal temperatures right where I showed you the 500 millibar flow would be on average. Let's see how this breaks down day by day. So for Thursday, that would be tomorrow. Again, the shading is not temperature. It's how much above or below normal the temperatures actually are. So this is perfectly matching what we're seeing here with the above normal readings there, the cooler readings indicated by the greens and the blues. Not much to be had, at least early on Thursday, for cooling in the east. But if you move ahead to Saturday, that definitely, you can see that very slow upper level system moving along. So the cool temperatures there. Pretty warm in places like Chicago and Des Moines, and also around Green Bay, and also up in Montana. Pretty cool in the southeast. Now note that this is well below normal, indicated by these blues. That still equates to 90s. in Arizona, just so you're aware of that. That's what they're used to. In the northern plains, 83 is the forecast on Monday for Minneapolis. Wow. Sioux Falls, 85, and same in Des Moines. Very, very toasty readings as we are starting to really get to the end of September, getting into October. And again, in keeping with that general pattern I just showed you. And the last graphic we'll show you is indeed the 6 to 10 day temperature forecast shows an extremely high confidence level that the central and northern plains will be a little toasty through that weekly period. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.